Hi, I'm James from James Does Things, and today I want to talk to you about how to deal with negative or neutral feedback on eBay, and more importantly, how to get rid of it. So I decided to make this video because I got some neutral feedback this week, which really annoyed me. I haven't had any negative feedback for a long time, but in both cases, I managed to get it removed. So that's what I'm going to go through in this video. There's several ways of doing it, and some are more applicable than others depending on what your situation is. So I'll go through what happened this week, and then I'll go through the different ways that you can actually get rid of negative or neutral feedback. Before we get started, if you've ever left negative or neutral feedback on an eBay purchase, or if you're an eBay seller and you've received it, please let me know in the comments. Tell me your story, because I'm always interested to learn new stuff. I think pretty much every time I make a video and people leave me comments, I always learn new stuff. And I think other eBayers do too. Okay, I was actually just making some B-roll for a video where, because I got some neutral feedback this week, so I was making a video about negative and neutral feedback, and I went to just make some B-roll showing the feedback and realised I'd actually got some negative feedback between me starting the making of this video and then finishing it, or getting close to the end of editing. And it's actually for the same item, which was a Roblox item. I'll show you what it is. It's an in-game item, and technically it's against the T's and C's of their game, selling these things. But it's selling these little pets in a gaming. I'm going to show you. I'm going to try and get this revised. Here you can see there's a request revision button. But before I do that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to send them a message. What I'll do first, because it is only 99p, I'm going to refund it first. If it was something more expensive, then I probably wouldn't. I might, give them a discount. I might say, or I might send them £10 or something. So if it was a £100 thing, I might send them £10. When did I send this? I sent it a while ago, and it was it this one? It was this guy. I sent this ages ago. Sent negative feedback. So I'm just going to go down, send a refund. It was 99p, even if the guy is scamming me, don't really care. I'm just going to put other adjustment because I don't think I've done anything wrong. No shitogram, no giving them what for, even though, quite frankly, this person's either a moron or a scammer. Review refund. Now I've sent that, I'm now going to, what I could do is go to, see, I already left them feedback as well, so I can't do anything. So what I can do is I can click on this. I could send them a message, but because I've already sent them the refund with a message, I'm going to send them this and say, request a revision. So I'm going to say, I resolved the buyer's transaction. I was going to say, this was real item. Because they've said it's fake, which isn't true. I'm not going to scam someone for 99p. So again, humble, contrite, even though this person's either a scammer or an idiot. Or it might. The thing is that also sometimes it's people's parents. Because that game is predominantly played by kids, so it might be they bought it for the kid. The kid says they can't find it because they gave, say, the display name instead of the username, that kind of thing. Right, send the request. So we're going to see what happens with that. Okay, so if you've had negative feedback or even neutral feedback and you want to get rid of it, first thing to do is actually look at the feedback. Why did you get it? Did they give you a reason? And was it reasonable? So in the past, I think that the first ever neutral feedback I got, I deserved it. I did. Basically, I packaged something in a hurry and I sent it to Australia, and I live in the UK, so it was on the other side of the planet. And it was packaged terribly, and I was just in a hurry, and it was lazy, and honestly deserved bad feedback, but I only got neutral feedback because some of the items were damaged. I did a partial refund, but that was I don't think I've ever had neutral or negative feedback about packaging since, because it really made me buck my ideas up. So have a think first before you go tearing into people, because when you get a message like that, when you see that someone's giving you bad feedback, I don't know about you, but I take it really personally. So have a think. Did you deserve it? Can you learn something from it? What happened to me this week, basically the person just said, I thought I was getting something else, They thought they were getting 5 things, but they only got 1 thing. Bear in mind, this was a 99p item, which made it even more frustrating that I'd gotten negative feedback on my 100% feedback rating for something that cost. It was a digital item as well, so there was no postage, and it was all laid out in black and white really carefully. So when I look at other people's feedback profiles on eBay, typically the things that they get negative feedback for are broken items, which isn't necessarily the seller's fault. Faulty items. When I say broken, I do mean like arrived broken, so often damaged in the post. But faulty items, which again, not necessarily, that depends on how they were shipped. Items that didn't turn up, but usually items that didn't turn up and then the messages weren't replied to. And that's often a thing you see with really big sellers. You see people who are just, you know, they're selling lots of low quality items. They're just banging them out, and you know, if they get sort of 3% negative feedback, they don't care. It's not worth their time actually replying, which isn't great if you're the buyer. So they're the sorts of things that you see negative feedback for, you know, usually. But often it's the service. It's usually when most people, if they say, oh, fair enough, you got damage in the post, or it arrived but it's faulty. Yes, it's annoying, but it's not always the seller's fault. And if they understand eBay, they won't usually leave you bad feedback, but sometimes people will. Another sort of occasion when it occurs is people who aren't used to eBay. If they're new to eBay and then they're used to Amazon, because on Amazon the replies, on Amazon the feedback is it's usually feedback for the item. It's a product rating, not a seller rating. So if you got feedback that you think you didn't deserve, there's a couple of ways around it. The first one is you can actually message the seller and say, please, would you mind revising your feedback? Because they can. The second thing you can do is, if you think it's been malicious, so if you think that it's, say, a new account and it's a competitor, say if you're a seller and you're selling, you know, shoes, and someone else who's also, whatever they are, you know, if they're a competitor, or someone who doesn't like you, and you think it's malicious, you know, it's a brand new account with 0 feedback, and they've left you some negative feedback, or even worse, if they've tried to do feedback extortion. So if they've said, I want a £10 discount, I'm giving you negative feedback on this, that kind of thing, or, you know, I want it for free, or blah blah blah. Then you stick to your guns and say no, and then eBay, and then they give you negative feedback. You can get in touch with eBay and you can report them, and eBay will actually, particularly if it's a new account, eBay will actually blitz that off for you. eBay customer service can do just about anything they want. They can literally just say black is blue, you know, they can change anything. So that's the last resort. The 2 occasions when I've had negative feedback where I didn't feel I deserved it, I got in touch with the person who left it and I sent them a message first. Hi, I'm sorry you weren't happy about X. I've sent you a refund, and by the way, if you'd sent me a message, I would have cleared it up straight away. If you wouldn't mind, you know, rescinding your feedback or revising it, I think is the word they use, revise. If you wouldn't mind revising your feedback, it'd mean a lot to me, because I've had 100% rating and blah blah blah. You know, things like that. Often the eBay seller isn't going to be interested in how long you've had your 100% rating for. But if you just say, you know, I think on the message I said, look, I take a lot of pride in my selling, and I don't like people being upset with things, blah blah blah. But my feedback rating is important to me and it really affects me. So if you could just revise it, you might see a message from eBay soon giving you the opportunity to revise it. But it was every time I've done it, it's always a humble message. It's always, you know, please, thank you, kind regards, yada yada. By the way, I've sent you a refund, that kind of thing. And both times that I've done that, it's worked. I've never had a time when it's not worked, and the only time that essentially the one time when I did deserve the feedback, I didn't do anything. I think I did give the guy a bit of a refund, but not, you know, I gave him a partial one, but he didn't actually send me a message to say, hi, look, you know, you've done this and it's rubbish and I want some money back. He didn't actually send me a message. So if you think you did deserve it or you did do something wrong, and they don't reply, the only other thing you can do is actually reply to their negative feedback. And this is something you see quite often with, say, bigger sellers, where often they just sort of say, you know, the opposite of whatever the person said. No, it's fine. We did the opposite of that, and you're lying. So you can actually, you know, respond to people and say, the best one I saw recently, someone who said, "Hi, I'm really sorry about this. It was totally my fault, and we had a family emergency, and basically I didn't look at my computer for a week. I've refunded you now, and blah blah blah." So it was something totally, instead of them, you know, basically it gave, this person didn't sell that many things, and they had quite a low rating. They had like a rating in the 80s, which if you only sell a few items and you suddenly get one negative feedback, if you don't sell items very often, instead of getting a feedback of like 99.8, you get feedback of like 82 or something, and it looks horrendous. But having seen that message, I then had complete faith in that seller, so I was happy to buy something from them. Whereas some of the other bigger sellers, where you see negative feedback and no response, and the negative feedback is things like, didn't reply to my messages, this thing was broken, this thing was cheap, this thing was fake, whatever, then that's a big red flag for me. So I think that the next best thing you can do, if maybe you did deserve the negative feedback, or at least if it's a case of maybe there was nothing you could control other than not selling that thing. You know, let's say if you were dropshipping something and it didn't turn up, or broke, that kind of thing, then maybe, or it was poor quality items, I would say that is within your control not to sell them. But still, you don't necessarily need the bad feedback, because it's not, if you refunded that person, you reply to their messages, then you don't really deserve negative feedback, in my opinion. So it's one of those things, but you can ask them first. If someone has given you negative feedback and you send them a message, you say, look, I think I've done everything I can, I've given you a refund, and I've replied to your messages, would you just mind revising it? And they say no, you can't go to eBay then and say, this guy's he's giving me negative feedback, because one of the things they say when you get negative feedback is you have to respect the buyer's opinion, or that their decision not to revise the feedback. So it is swings and roundabouts. So that's why it's always a good idea not to go in guns blazing with messages. So if you get negative feedback and then you go and send someone like a shitogram on the message system, you're not going to get anywhere. So I would really advise you to be humble, apologetic, where it's appropriate, and then just ask, just say, look, I'm sorry about this, blah blah. I hope you found this video useful. I do have another video about scammers, particularly if you feel you've been the victim of either a scam or malicious sort of feedback extortion. I've got a video all about eBay scammers, which I'll put a link to in the description. If you found this useful, please do leave me a like and consider subscribing for more content like this. And yeah, please leave me a comment. Have you been the victim of negative feedback? When have you had negative feedback and neutral feedback, when maybe you did deserve it, maybe you didn't? But I'd love to hear about it, so please leave me a comment and let me know.